Thank you, President John, fellow Rotarians. About a year ago, I got a call from this beautiful woman to my left here, Jan Pfeiffer, from the Greater Lansing Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Jan said, let's meet for coffee. I have to tell you about a friend of mine. And so we met, and she said, have you ever heard of Life as a Zebra? Or have you ever met Katie Jaskolski? And I said, no, I hadn't. But after listening to Jan and learning about Katie, I knew I needed to meet her. And so we met, and I profiled her in my blog. She's a very inspiring young lady, and I thought, what a perfect opportunity to bring her to Rotary so you could hear her story. And I think it's so timely with the death of Robin Williams this week. Invisible illnesses are so prevalent in our country, yet we don't hear about them, because oftentimes you never know what a person is going through by just looking at them. So I'm very honored today to introduce you to Katie Jaskolski to talk about Life as a Zebra.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Bob, for having me and asking me to be here, and to all of you for allowing me to come speak to you today. Like Bob said, my name is Katie Jaskolski. I am the president and co-founder of Life as a Zebra Foundation. I'm going to tell you I'm also a kindergarten teacher, and I'm used to the world of 5-year-olds. So grown-ups kind of...
Everything's just fine there.
That's what I was going to say. Grown-ups scare me, and so instead of picturing you in your underwear, I'm just going to pretend like you're 5 and go with that. So first of all, what is Life as a Zebra Foundation? The first question I always get is, what does zebras have to do with invisible illnesses? Why zebras? Are you a zoological society? And the answer is no. The reason zebras in medical school, students are taught, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. So they are taught to look at the more common illnesses, not the hard to diagnose illnesses. Those are the horse illnesses. And so zebras on the opposite side of it are the out of the box, sometimes rare, sometimes not, hard to diagnose illnesses. Our foundation, Life's a Zebra Foundation, we work hard to raise awareness for invisible illnesses, support research, advocate, and I'll talk more about that as I go. First of all, I just want to give you a little bit of personal background about my story and how this all came to be. I was a gymnast for 14 years, always healthy, always active, never had many problems growing up with sickness. I competed at Michigan State my freshman year, and then I got hurt and had to retire. So after that, I became a runner, just for fun, started to run races, and again, was still active. When I turned 28, I started to get some back pain and some stomach pain. My stomach wasn't working right, and I just felt like things weren't going how it should be with my body. And so being the athlete that I was my whole life, I was trained, you give your body rest so it can recover. So I gave my body the time and to rest, and that's when the curveball of sickness hit me. It totally backfired on me. All of a sudden, my stomach got worse, my back got worse, sickness hit me, and it hit me fast. And I didn't know why. So when that happens, you want answers. My quest for answers began. I started to go from doctor to different specialists, wondering why I was getting sicker by the day. I ended up in a matter of months in a wheelchair, not being able to walk from room to room, in a neck brace, in a back brace. So as I continued to go to the doctors, I would find that at the end of appointments, I'd get handed those smiley face, sad face scales, the depression scales, indicating it was in my head. And part of that was because I looked like this. I looked fine, I didn't look sick, yet my body was falling apart, and I still didn't know why. So I was desperate for answers. It was one of the scariest times of my life. I continued my quest to see and travel. I traveled all over the Midwest. Long story short, it was the 23rd doctor in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that diagnosed me with a genetic connective tissue disease, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And then 2 days later at Cleveland Clinic, I was diagnosed with a second zebra disease, dysautonomia, or a disease of the autonomic nervous system. So everything, the autonomic nervous system does everything we don't think about: digestion, heart rate, blood pressure, which is why I was getting sick. So I found out I had these two invisible zebra diseases, and with answers comes management. I was relieved, but I also found out these weren't going to go away, and I needed to figure out how to get back to my life and how to still live a fulfilling, purposeful life. And that's my story in a nutshell, personally, but then there's my sister, and she's the other co-founder of our foundation, Allie. She has a similar story of a medical mystery she went through, which is really crazy because we ended up not being diagnosed with the same diseases at all. But she also was a gymnast. She got a full ride scholarship to University of Maryland, where she went and she competed. Her junior year at Maryland, she started to get really weird symptoms as well. Flu-like at first. She was told maybe mono. But she continued to get sicker to the point where she couldn't walk from class to class. And she would call home and say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but there's something really wrong. Again, she looked healthy. She was an athlete. She looked fine, but her body, she was losing function and losing function fast. And so, long story short with her, these are long, each one's about a year. There was one night in her dorm room when her roommate ended up calling the ambulance because she was doubled over in so much pain, and they came and got her and took her to University of Maryland Medical Center. And little did we know it was there that started her 48-day stay of doctors trying to figure out what was wrong. I'll never forget the night of Christmas 2008. We were called. I was home. My parents had since moved there and were living in her dorm room, and told us that we needed to say our goodbyes because she had had such a terrible seizure. They thought her brain was dead and she'd be a vegetable, and that was it. A miracle happened and she pulled through. Again, she couldn't be here today. She's in Washington, D.C. finishing up an internship, so she's almost finished with her occupational therapy degree. So, but it was a doctor at the Maryland Medical Center that there was one doctor who did think out of the box. And he said she needed a kidney biopsy. And the whole team of doctors that was working on her case kept fighting it and saying, no, that's not going to show anything. But finally they agreed, and it was that kidney biopsy that diagnosed her with an autoimmune, life-threatening disease called polyarthritis nodosa vasculitis. So Allie and I, we had our answers, and like I said, we had to figure out what we were going to do with those answers, and how I was going to get back to teaching, how she was going to get back to school or get back to our lives. Allie began intensive chemotherapy and intensive steroid treatment. And now I'm happy to say she is in remission, and we hope that that continues. So how Life as a Zebra Foundation evolved. Allie and I, after we started to recover a little bit and start to feel better and literally get back on our feet, we looked at each other and we said, we need to do something. If we've gone through these similar journeys and these similar struggles, there's got to be millions of other people out there that are facing these struggles as well. And we always say it's hard enough to get sick, but then to have to fight to be taken seriously, that takes it to a whole new level. And so we wanted to do something. We decided let's have a fundraiser and raise money for research for the illnesses that we have. We had it in a bar 4 years ago, and it blew us away. The people that came and the money that we raised, and it was the people that came up to us at the end of that event and said, my sister has, or my mom has, or I have, or I know exactly what you're talking about. I live with lupus every day, and I have to, advocate for myself constantly. And that really opened Allie and my eyes that we could do more. And so it evolved into the foundation. We started the paperwork to become a 501c3, and we have been for 2 years now. There's 3 pillars to Life is a Zebra Foundation. We like to say it's easy. E for education, A for advocacy, S for support, and it's for zebras. For education, some of the things we have done, educating healthcare professionals, our personal specialists that we have now. I have done different in-services with physical therapists, nurses, doctors, and working together about how these are real. And even though these sicknesses may not be visible, they can be just as debilitating, or even more so than visible illnesses. And then, because like I said, I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I have access to different elementary schools and my kids, and we do a zebra day every year where the kids get to get all dressed up in their zebra gear, and then I do, and if Allie's in town, we'll together talk to the kids. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about technical medical terms, but kids get compassion when you talk to them about that, or respect, or empathy. And I always hold this up to the kids because they know what this is. And I tell them, do you think that I need this? And they always say no, but I do. There are days that I need the handicap sticker, and there have been days I've gotten nasty notes on my car or the looks. And so just getting that message out, again, not to judge and holding that judgment. The prevalence of invisible illnesses in our society, 1 in 2 Americans have a chronic illness, and approximately 96% of those are invisible. And so the statistics say that some of you know what I'm talking about today, or know someone that has had a similar struggle or similar journey with this. They're sometimes rare and they're sometimes not. Sometimes zebra diseases are called rare, but that's not always the case. You may not have heard of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or dysautonomia or vasculitis, but chances are you've heard of rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, mental illnesses, Crohn's disease. So those are just to name a few. And then educating about personally what zebras need. So I always say I can't expect people or my principal to understand if I don't educate them myself. So for example, I'm allowed to work half-time now. I'm back to teaching in the mornings. Mornings are my best time of day. But the afternoons are now my other job. It's to rehab, it's to go to doctors, it's to nap. If I don't nap every day, I can't function at night. And so educating about my needs and inspiring other zebras to do the same. Advocacy. This is really exciting. Recently, the Michigan Senate unanimously adopted Invisible Illness Awareness Week. It was in the last week of May. So Life is a Zebra Foundation spearheaded the campaign, and the Senate Majority Leader introduced it, and on both sides, everyone supported it. And we had an advocacy campaign, social media campaign with that. That was our springboard. We just recently got back from Washington, D.C., where we had meetings with different congressional leaders, and like Stabenow, Rogers, and we had the chance to talk to them. From what we did with the Michigan Senate, they were interested and reached out to us, and And now we're working towards a national day of action where Life is a Zebra Foundation will be the umbrella organization that will bring many other foundations together to advocate for their illnesses plus the invisible aspect of it. We learned that these illnesses don't stop at state lines. It's worldwide. And then thirdly, support. We provide support to zebras all over the world. I just emailed a girl in Australia this morning who wondered about my shower chair because showers can make me sick. And with people with dysautonomia, the blood pools in your legs and so you can get sick. So I just emailed her today about shower chairs. But sometimes it's just a matter of connecting with people and them hearing me too, or you're not at a dead end. There's always another path. Don't give up. And that can be enough for someone to keep going and keep trying to find answers like we had to do. We hold events every year. Our big event is in April. It's at the Kellogg Center. It's a benefit concert. We bring singer-songwriters in from around the country. Last year this April, we had Tony Luca from The Voice. And so we have the gala first, and then we have the concert. And that's our big event. And we did a 5K in June. We partnered with another organization and had a Team Zebra. And like I said, we do the Zebra Day with the youth. And we also have, this also started with a blog. I keep a blog. It's at lifeisazebra.com where I talk more about my personal experiences. And so that has led to the support with other zebras and being able to connect with when they read on the blog. And our blog has been a finalist for WeGo Health's Health Activist Hero Award. Our call to action to you, or ways to help with our easy model for education, just visiting our website, checking us out more, helping us spread the word about what we're trying to do and what we are in the process of doing. Advocacy. Allie and I always say that now her vasculitis and my EDS and dysautonomia, there are blessings. We think we have these to maybe help people look at things just a little bit differently. And when we do these, when I do have the opportunity to speak to people like you, that's a way that you can help us, is to also help others hold judgment and not be quick to judge and look at things differently as well, and spread that message. And then support. We are a purely volunteer nonprofit organization, and so we do need, plain and simple, dollars. We do need sponsorships. They're vital to our growth and to our development. So any help from you as leaders of Lansing would be amazing. But I want to end with, from becoming sick, like I said, Allie and I always call these things we call them our blessings now. And we're quick to say we don't suffer from them, we live with them. And there's a lot of things that we have learned from having to live with these invisible illnesses. Number one, evaluating the priorities in our lives. Every day, I wake up and say, okay, do I have a liter of energy? Do I have half a liter? Do I have 2? And trying to figure out how to spend that energy so I get what I need to get done. And there's no time for drama. There's no time for fluff. And that makes everything so much more important and meaningful. The second lesson, being your own advocate. We've learned no one else is going to do it for you. And then taking charge of what you can. Allie and I are very type A control freaks, and we like to try to figure out, we've learned with sickness, you can't always control everything. And so we may have a day with a flare, but then we have to look at it in a different way. What else can I control? I can control what food I put into my body, so I have the utmost energy that I can have. Or I can control how much I sleep and try to recover so that the next day I'm okay. Appreciating the little things. I may not be able to walk across Myers parking lot one day. It might be a handicap sticker day, but the sun is shining, I have 2 legs, I am vertical. So it's all about the way you think about things. And then finally, I just want to leave you with something that seems very simple, but I've learned there's a lot of depth to it. And the overarching message of all of it today is everyone is fighting a hard battle, and you never know. And it's important to hold judgment and to remember not to judge that book by the cover. So I think that's enough said. I have business cards and one-pagers, information on the table, and bumper stickers you're free to take. Also on zebranation.org, our foundation website, if you're interested more in our story, there's a home TV, there's a mini documentary. So you can watch that. It's won a couple TV awards. We're really excited about that. So thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Bob, again for inviting me. And thank you for helping us make our invisible visible. Thank you. And I can take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. I thought I was going to cry like 20 times during that. I think what you're doing is great, and I'm a wellness coach, so I share your passion for nutrition, doing the things you can do, and being personally accountable for your own health. But some of these things, and I've actually heard about your website like a year ago. A friend of mine was on it trying to figure out, and she's still struggling with the battle of trying to figure out what's going on with her. And she's a young mom, and it's really hard for her to have no energy and have bad days, but hopefully she'll find her answer. But in all of this, the things that you mentioned, now I've been in the wellness industry for 15 years and I've never heard of these things. How difficult was it for you to find research? Like once the doctor diagnosed you, they're so rare. Were you able to go online and actually find research about the do's and don'ts of how to live once you were diagnosed?
It's a good question. I had to be very careful about going online because it could be very scary. I mean, not to bring it down, but 2 weeks ago, my cousin, this is a genetic disease, she passed away from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, from what I have, and it can be very scary. So I had to be careful about online. I found that what helped me the most to find how to manage more was with my specialists and finding the right specialist for me. My Ehlers-Danlos specialist, I am lucky. I do have the insurance that I need where I can go to Pennsylvania where he is. I travel now and my dysautonomia specialist is in Toledo. So I had to go outside of Michigan to find the care that was right for me. And that was how I did it personally, by being a team and working with them. Thanks.
Hey, I just wanted to share something with you. You shared the idea that you on occasion have to use your handicap sticker.
Yes.
And I, as one person, have seen people get out of cars, and I've cursed them under my breath because I said, this person really does need it. So thank you for sharing that with me. I'm going to look at those people in the future differently.
Well, thank you very much.
I think Pat has a question. Are these conditions hereditary, and as a result of your diagnosis has kind of alluded to it, but relative, but have other family members been diagnosed with the same thing that you and your sister have?
Well, they are, what I have is genetic. What Allie has is not genetic. It's really a mystery in itself with that because no other family member besides my cousin who just passed away that has been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I'll tell you a little bit of being a gymnast. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disease. Basically, you're too stretchy, which can help you be a great gymnast if you're hyperflexible. But when that starts to make your stomach too stretchy or your blood vessels too stretchy, that's when you get into problems. And I lost my train of thought. Oh, wow. So being a gymnast all my life, I was always strong, and then a runner. My muscles were always keeping my body together. So even though I was born with it, it wasn't until I was 28 when I stopped being active that everything came out because my muscles became weak and then my body was no longer glued together by my muscles and then all the symptoms began. But so far, no one else has been diagnosed with it in my family. Thank you.
I could talk to you all day long. We'll have lunch.
We did, yes.
So if someone were to be struggling with this, and maybe I missed this in your presentation, I had so many things going through my head, but did they contact you? Do you help give them like direction on where to go? Or your website, why would somebody go there other than donating? If I'm sick, can I contact you and say, hey, what do I do? I'm feeling really frustrated.
Yeah, you for inspiration, for support, and then for some advice as well. I'm always careful to say I am not a doctor, and I have to be careful with that.
But what about resources?
But say, these are the resources that I know, like, again, for the shower chair email this morning, I sent this zebra different resources for getting a shower chair and where she could. So, but for different illnesses, like I'm pretty much an expert now on Ehlers-Danlos and dysautonomia, so I can talk and give advice about that more so than maybe lupus or Crohn's or...
Do you guys have anybody medical like on your staff or within your organization that can help people in other ways, like maybe reach out to this specialist or that specialist?
We are currently forming an advisory board, and we just added a legislative advisor, but that's our next step is to get someone in the medical community on our advisory board as well.
It's not unusual to hear people say that you go to a lot of doctors. What are your thoughts on the medical profession regarding their missing, making that it's so difficult to sometimes diagnose these things?
Oh boy. Don't get me wrong. I have doctors now, and I had a doctor throughout the year of my scary year who was an angel who helped me along the way. But I do think, especially when doctors specialize in different areas, that it becomes such a tunnel vision for that specialty, and then thinking out of the box it doesn't happen. And it makes sense. I mean, you want to rule out the most common things first, but the point is also to be, to have doctors who do take you seriously. It's not just a 10-minute, well, you have so many symptoms, it doesn't fit one puzzle, so here's a depression scale. And that was the most frustrating part. And I think if there could be like an hour even or 2 hours in the medical school curriculum where invisible illnesses are talked about or addressed and how to deal with these people that come in with symptoms all over the board and who look healthy, that would be amazing. That'd be a huge step.
Okay, is there any institutions that are focused on research on invisible illnesses, hospitals or educations?
There
I can
are.
repeat the question.
Are there other like foundations or organizations focused on the research for invisible illnesses was the question. Or hospitals? No, there's not. So we've been told, and I think that's where some of the interest from DC came, is that this is something new. I mean, there are different organizations for rare diseases, but like I said, invisible illnesses doesn't always fit into the rare. So no, I mean, Life is a Zebra Foundation so far is it.
You raised kind of an interesting point to me, and I wonder if there's any statistics on this. Have things been diagnosed as being mental illness? And in fact, there is a physical disease, and later they discovered that there's statistics that show.
I talk to people all the time that are told they've just been diagnosed as depressed. and they know that it's more than that. So the short answer is yes. I mean, I have talked to a lot of people who are going through that right now. And the same thing with me, it's the advocating for yourself. You know if something's wrong, you know and I just kept saying, yeah, I am depressed, but I'm depressed because I'm not getting the answers in my body. I'm not teaching anymore. I'm not able to stand up. I'm not able to walk. I'm in a wheelchair, and I just was running. So yeah, I am depressed, but there's a lot more to it than that.
So speaking from personal experience, you helped me to label the fact that my mother was a zebra. She had multiple sclerosis before they knew what it was.
Okay, yeah.
And I think of interest to me was how she was treated as a zebra even in her family.
Yeah.
And we weren't allowed to share with other family members what was going on. And so there was a lot of misinterpretation and some judgment about what was happening in the family structure. So hopefully within that group and your outreach, you have counselors or people who can help families deal with those.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you had good insurance that allowed the coverage that you needed, but I'm wondering about the, not your words, but mine, the simplistic look, immediately doing a diagnosis, which makes sense, but then when you have to start thinking more creatively, how much is limited by the expense of the extra tests and our overall, how does that relate to our overall health system in the United States? Big question, but I figure you probably have insight.
So, I guess I'm not understanding that exact question. I'm sorry.
Okay, so when it comes time when you realize, I, the doctor, that the obvious things are not the answers, and there are 5 different tests that we could go to, and each one is more expensive than the next one.
Right.
How much of that thinking is involved? But then also, who's going to pay for those tests?
Right, and that is a big issue. That, like I said, Allie and I realized we are the lucky ones that did have the insurance to be able to have so many different tests, and there are people out there that don't have that coverage. I found that the doctors that I saw personally were always quick to to send me to a new test, and then it was up to me, and me figuring out with my insurance if that was covered or not, and then making that decision, which is tough, and that's a whole nother issue of what zebras are going through too, trying to get their answers. Thank you.
Katie, thank you so much for sharing with us today. In your name, we've made a donation for a water project in underdeveloped countries. And this is a coin at the copy of our 408 theft for Rotary. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.